Flume was once part of an adventure group she trusted with her life. The people she believed were her closest friends. But when her weakness became a burden, they didn't protect her. They told her to roll over and die. Abandoned, betrayed, sold to a slave trader like she was nothing. At the lowest point of her life, when all hope was gone, something inside her awakened. A hidden, cursed power. The girl they threw away, the girl they told to die, was no longer weak. This is a story of Flume, and the curse that changed her fate forever. The anime opens inside an ominous, dungeon-like facility crawling with centipedes and insects. The kind of place modern people refuse to spend even a single night in, not even for $1 million and a written apology. This dungeon functions as a slave prison. Everyone trapped inside is starving, hallucinating, and enduring what is easily the worst day of their lives, with no hope of survival. The prisoners lack even the energy to speak, and their bones bulge grotesquely through their skin from severe malnutrition. The main character, Flume Apricot, awakens and immediately realizes she has landed in what can only be described as hell with worse interior design. As she scans her surroundings, her gaze locks onto a young girl sitting alone in the corner, completely isolated and strangely unbothered. The girl's eyes are striking, beautiful enough to look as though they were traded for gemstones. Yet they are hollow, empty, and utterly devoid of life. Unlike the other prisoners, she does not beg, cry, or plead to be saved. She simply sits there, not because she is brave, but because she has never known a good day in her life. She has never been close enough to freedom to desire it, nor has she ever understood the concept of hope. Ironically, this ignorance becomes a perfect coping mechanism, keeping her calm even in the grimmest circumstances, though only because she cannot imagine anything better than this existence. Flume, meanwhile, struggles to process her situation. Before she can even gather her thoughts, a grotesquely fat man covered in rings appears outside the cell. With a smug grin and a voice dripping with contempt, he announces that everyone present is a slave, and a worthless one at that. According to him, even slaves must meet a minimum standard to be valuable, and these prisoners fail spectacularly. He declares their worthlessness a personal offense, complaining that he wasted good money buying and feeding them despite receiving nothing in return. While one might assume this would be the point where he cuts his losses and releases them, kindness clearly never appears on his character sheet. Instead, he unleashes a horde of monsters into dungeon, eager to entertain himself by watching useless lives die in agony. As death closes in, Flume's mind floods with memories. She recalls being chosen by the Origin to fight demons and join a prestigious group from her village. That pride quickly collapses into bitterness as she remembers becoming the weakest member, more burdened than help. She relives the painful moment her childhood friend, Cyril, abandons her after growing strong, leaving her behind without a second glance. To make matters worse, one of her former comrades is the very person who sold her to the slave owner, now watching her die for amusement. Back in the present, chaos erupts. Some prisoners attempt to flee the ghouls and fail miserably. One desperate man grabs a sword from the cell, only to discover it is cursed. The blade promptly vaporizes his frail body down to the bone, proving that optimism remains a dangerous hobby in this dungeon. Soon, only Flume and the silent girl in the corner remain alive. Each passing second stretches into an eternity as Flume faces her inevitable death. She realizes she has only one choice left, not whether she will die, but how. She can allow the ghouls to tear her apart, or she can take the cursed sword and go down fighting. Summoning every last ounce of strength, she chooses the sword. This decision changes everything. Instead of being destroyed, her wounds heal instantly the moment she touches the blade. Rather than being crushed by its weight, her body feels lighter and faster. Hope surges through her veins before her mind can even process what is happening. Acting purely on instinct, Flume cuts down to 3 feeble ghouls in front of her with ease. Her next target is the slave owner himself, less a man and more an overgrown pig in jewelry. He desperately begs for his life, but Flume's rage drowns out any possibility of mercy. She drives the cursed blade straight through him, granting him a death far quicker than he deserves. With the dungeon cleared, Flume grabs the only surviving girl and escapes. Along the way, they are harassed by men with oversized muscles and severely underdeveloped brains, but Flume has more important concerns than background NPCs with bad dialogue. They take refuge in a narrow alley, where Flume finally begins to piece everything together. She realizes the truth about her ability. Affinity, the very power that kept her weak all this time, reverses positives into negatives and negatives into positives. In other words, cursed weapons empower her instead of destroying her. The same ability that once crippled her potential now explains everything. With this revelation, Flume heads straight to the town's licensing department to obtain a hero permit. The receptionist immediately eyes Flume and her companion with thinly veiled skepticism. She doubts someone so scrawny could survive monster hunting and casually suggests an alternative career path instead, one involving a brothel. In not-so-subtle terms, She implies Flume will be better suited for spreading her legs than spilling monster blood. Flume, unimpressed and unwavering, insists on the job. At that moment, an A-rank hunter named Dine steps in. With sharp wit and smooth persuasion, he convinces a receptionist to give Flume a chance and personally hands her a mission. Grateful for the kindness, Flume wastes no time setting out. Unfortunately for her, the mission is far from simple, and Dine is far more dangerous and mysterious than he lets on. The next episode opens with Flume desperately scrubbing at the fresh mark on her face, the one left behind by a former party member. No matter how hard she rubs, the stain refuses to fade. As exhaustion sets in, her thoughts drift back to the day Gene sold her into slavery. He had not even cared about being paid. All that mattered to him was never having to see her face again. With those cold words, he had handed her over to a slave trader without a second thought. Memories she wishes she could bury resurface. The cruelty of the trader, the humiliation and the pain that followed. Eventually, Flume stops trying to erase the mark altogether. She collapses onto the ground, staring blankly at the sky. It is then that Milkett appears, seemingly out of nowhere, and strikes up a conversation. She hesitantly asks whether her own appearance bothers Flume. True to her gentle nature, Flume assures her that there is nothing wrong with how Milkett looks. Milkett, however, cannot comprehend the idea that someone like her was saved at all. She admits that she believes she was never worth saving, and asks Flume why she chose to help her in the first place. Flume confesses that she does not fully understand her own reasons. After some thought, she admits it might be tied to her ego, having been abandoned by her former party and declared utterly useless. Saving someone else who had been cast aside by the world may have offered her a sense of closure. Milkett admits that Flume's explanation makes little sense to her. Flume, in turn, acknowledges that she does not understand her own emotions either. Back at the guild, a man casually asks if anyone is willing to bet on Flume and Milkett returning alive from their mission. No one accepts. To everyone present, the two women are already dead. Although the job is labeled as F rank, the monster they are meant to face is clearly D rank or higher. Elsewhere in the guild, Dine reunites with an old acquaintance. Their conversation turns to a recent incident. A black market slave trader has been found dead in the center of town. What truly unsettles them is not the murder itself, but the fact that the investigation is being handled by the church's knights rather than the royal army. The situation reeks of corruption. Dine immediately suspects a connection to the illegal black medicine trade. A sly smile spreads across his face as he realizes exactly how he can turn the chaos to his advantage. Meanwhile, Flume and Milkett arrive at their target location. Their relief vanishes the moment they discover the monster's level, 512. Flume instantly understands the implications. The guild had deliberately set them up, assigning a job far beyond their rank in hopes of getting them killed. What the guild failed to account for, however, was Flume herself. With a stat level nearing 1,000, she is far stronger than they assumed. That realization brings little comfort when Flume senses something else. There is more than one werewolf. She recalls her mentor's teachings. Werewolves hunt in packs, and encountering one always means others are nearby. Her fears deepen when a fifth werewolf suddenly begins behaving erratically. The creature grows violently aggressive, performing the unthinkable, merging its body with the others. Its power surges, its stats skyrocketing to nearly 2,000. The transformed werewolf immediately locks onto Flume's position and unleashes a devastating attack. The tree she'd been hiding behind is obliterated in an instant, leaving no doubt about the threat she faces. Acting on instinct, Flume draws her sword and braces herself, holding the monster at bay long enough to order Milkett to escape. The werewolf attacks relentlessly. Flume dodges several strikes with ease, and even manages to block one head-on. The exchange gives her confidence. She can fight this thing. As the battle continues, she notices a pattern in the creature's movements. Seizing the opportunity, she counters its attack and charges forward, slicing it cleanly in half and landing behind it. Even bisected, the monster refuses to fall. It twists its body unnaturally and lashes out, managing to slash Flume's arm. The wound burns with agonizing pain, infused with strange and hostile magic. Flume channels her healing ability through her sword, restoring herself almost instantly. Watching her arm regenerate, she briefly wonders whether she herself has become something monstrous. Refusing to hesitate, she attacks again, this time splitting the werewolf vertically, confident that the fight is finally over. Believing the battle won, Flume moves to collect the creature's head as proof for the guild. To her horror, the severed head suddenly comes alive and bites down on her arm. She staggers back, fighting to steady herself. Despite her powerful healing magic, the wound will not regenerate. The creature's saliva carries a twisted magic that repeatedly racks her arm with unbearable pain. Gritting her teeth, Flume makes a brutal decision. With only a moment of hesitation, she severs her own arm. The pain is excruciating, but only for a moment. Her healing magic restores a limb. Within seconds, For an instant, Flume considers running, but doing so would mean remaining the same powerless person she has always been. Instead, she steps forward once more, faces a monster head-on, and resolves to end the battle. This time, she destroys it for good. Meanwhile, Milkit flees deep into the forest, where isolation leaves her alone with her thoughts. As she hides among the trees, memories of her past resurface. She has always been a slave, and the cruel words of her former owners echo relentlessly in her mind, being told she was worthless, that slaves were not human, and that killing her would not even count as murder. Even though her life had been an immediate danger moment ago, those words dominate her thoughts. She has lived so long, without valuing her own existence, that fear no longer registers the way it should. Her spiraling thoughts are abruptly interrupted when Flume appears, completely unharmed by the battle with the werewolf. Milkit is stunned and deeply relieved. Flume is the first master she has ever known who shows no sign of cruelty. Kindness is something Milkit is utterly unaccustomed to, and because of that, she believes she does not deserve it. In her eyes, she is unworthy of Flume. Summoning her courage, Milkit removes the bandage she always wears and reveals a scarred face beneath it. She calls herself ugly and insists that Flume should sell her to someone else, claiming she is useless and only a burden. Flume refuses to see her that way. Without hesitation, she pulls Milkit into a firm embrace and tells her that scars are no reason to abandon someone. For the first time in her life, Milkit experiences genuine affection, something freely given without conditions. In that moment, she realizes she wants to stay with Flume. Neither of them truly understands what happiness feels like, but they agree to search for it together until they can finally grasp it. Elsewhere, the party that betrayed Flume finds themselves struggling. With Flume gone, they quickly realize that she'd been the only one capable of cooking edible meals. Now forced to prepare food themselves, they can barely bring themselves to swallow what they make. After defeating the werewolves, Flume and Milkit return to the Adventurers Guild to collect their reward. When nearby adventurers overhear that the payment is for a werewolf kill, they openly mock Flume. In their eyes, a slave could never defeat such a monster. Flume responds by calmly drawing her cursed sword and knocking one of the men off his chair, asserting her authority without a word. The receptionist verifies the kills and hands over the reward, leaving the entire guild hall in stunned silence. The two then head to a small inn, where the owner treats them with unexpected warmth and dignity. For the first time in a long while, Flume feels safe. Being treated like a human being, rather than a tool or an outcast, is exactly what she needed. That night, she feels genuinely hopeful about the future. She suggests that she and Milkit go shopping the next day. Milkit hesitates, insisting that there is no point in buying clothes for a slave. Flume counters firmly, declaring that as Milkit's master, she orders her to come along. The words are spoken lightly, but they mark the beginning of something far more meaningful, a bond between two girls. One had never possessed anything in her life, while the other had lost everything she once had. Yet, beyond the distant trees, danger still lingers. Deep within the forest, the werewolf Flume believes she had slain stirs, barely alive. With hatred burning in its eyes, it utters a chilling vow: "You will pay."